Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. My name is Nastasia, and today I'm excited because I'm sharing my birth story. So I tried filming my birth, or I guess I should say my son's birth, but my labor and delivery. I tried filming it. I didn't really get any footage, if I'm being honest. I will include some pictures in here of things I got, but I didn't get the full thing on film. And as much as I did want that, I also knew there was a chance I wouldn't get it, and I didn't want to put pressure on myself, you know, for my first birth, an unmedicated home birth. I didn't want to be worrying about filming it. So this is my version of giving you as many details as possible about my birth. I loved watching these videos when I was pregnant and, you know, trying to prepare. And also I just find these videos really interesting, and I believe that the Lord really sustained me and pulled me through labor. So hopefully this can all be very glorifying and honoring to Him as well, and joy-filled and all of that. Before we get into it, if you end up liking this video, give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you never miss out on a video every time I post. My Instagram is right here, so you can see the behind the scenes of my life and my little baby's life. And also I have a Patreon. If you have not checked out my Patreon yet, I put exclusive content there. I actually am uploading a video there this week of 9 things, or was it 10 things? I think it was 10 things that I actually regret about my home birth and that I would have changed. So pretty interesting video, a little juicy, and so I get into some of the nitty-gritty details of that. My Patreon is always open for new people to join. It directly supports me and my little family, so I really appreciate you being there. Thank you so much, and let's get into today's video. Okay, so starting out, I'm going to be inserting some pictures as well, but the day, it was, what was it? It was a Wednesday? Yes, it was a Wednesday when I had, this might be a long video by the way, just prepare yourself. I was annoyed. I had not gone into labor yet. I had a midwife appointment, and it was my 40-week appointment. So I was over 40 weeks at that point. I was 40 weeks and, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days. So 40 weeks and 4 days. And that is absolutely fine and safe and totally okay. But I was just over being pregnant, and my midwives were talking about possibly doing a 41-week ultrasound, which I didn't really want to do, but it's kind of typical, and I only had a couple more days till I was going to hit that 41-week mark. So I was just feeling frustrated that I wasn't showing signs of labor yet or anything like that. That morning I was just in a bummed out mood and I went to my midwife appointment. We had talked about this stuff. I was like, whatever, schedule the ultrasound. And on the way home I was praying. I was like, Lord, I don't want to go to that ultrasound. I want this baby to come before then. I really do. And I want to have my baby. And I literally specifically prayed that the Lord would put me into labor. I really did. I get home. It is about noon-ish when I get home. And I'm in a bummed mood. Kai's in a bummed mood. I don't know if he was for the same reasons, but I was bummed because I wasn't in labor yet. So I come inside and I go to the bathroom and I sit down to go to the bathroom, and I feel a pop inside of me, and it was my water breaking. It wasn't like a huge gush, but it did pop, and it started kind of trickling and leaking, and I was like, okay, and I was like, my water broke. I was so excited because I went from being so bummed, praying the Lord would put me in labor, to being put in labor. And so the only thing I was annoyed about a little bit was because I really wanted my water to not break until I was about to be pushing. Like, your water doesn't have to break to go into labor, by the way, if you didn't know that. And usually most people say that it adds a nice cushion and takes away a lot of that pain during contractions and everything, and that once their water breaks, that's when crap gets real. So I was kind of bummed that my water had already broke, so I knew contractions were going to be harder. But anyway, I got immediate, slight period, cramps immediately. My water breaking was, you know, it was normal and stuff. I told Kai, I was like, my water broke, and he was like, no way, really? And I was like, yeah. And so he went to dad mode and was like, we need to make sure everything's ready and stuff, even though it basically was. But he got a good lunch in me and everything, and my mindset was, I knew when I went into early labor that I wanted to basically try to pretend like it wasn't happening. Just do fun things, take my mind off of it. So we went out. What did we do? We did a bunch of stuff at the house, and then we decided to go out. We went and got burgers. So we went to a burger place, got a good burger in. We walked around a little bit. I think I got ice cream or something. Just really pretend like it wasn't happening. I had like this slight period like cramps, but it was nothing like, I don't even consider that labor really, because I didn't feel basically anything. I just knew my water had broken. We get home that evening, and our family that we are currently living with, we let them know that, you know, I'm in labor and stuff, and they're so excited. And so we, you know, my midwives actually told me in the evening, if you don't go into active labor yet, you know, and you're still pretty chill, but you know you're in labor, they suggested to either take a Benadryl, a bunch of Tylenol, or a glass of wine, which I know sounds crazy. I was like, a glass of wine, I'm pregnant. But they're like, no, it doesn't affect you. You're in labor. It's not gonna affect anything. Again, you can do your own research, but this is what I had been told by my providers. So I decided to drink a glass of red wine, eat some cookies, play some games, and then go to bed. So that's what I did. I felt so relaxed, and I really do think the red wine helped me to be able to fall asleep, because I was too excited to sleep, but that helped me relax me enough to get some sleep in. So grateful I got a little bit of sleep in. So fell asleep probably around 10:30, 11. Woke up at 1 a.m. to pretty intense active labor, about 3-ish minutes apart, 3.5 minutes apart. I woke up when my body just couldn't ignore the pain anymore. Went to the bathroom, and I had immediate, like, really, like, shakes really bad. And I was like, what the heck is happening? What is this? I call my doula, because Kai was still asleep. I call my doula, I tell her what's going on. She says, that's normal. It's probably your body catching up to everything that's been going on throughout the night. Like, and everything's just, anyway, the shakes are normal, it's hormonal, you're okay, but I'll probably head over soon since your contractions are pretty close together. And so I was like, okay, and so so that's when I say I was in like active labor, where I was like actively working through them. So I wake Kai up. Unfortunately, he only got like 20 minutes of sleep. He fell asleep at like 12:30 and then woke up at 1 a.m. Because he just couldn't sleep. So I wake him up, I tell him I'm, you know, in labor. I'll insert a little bit of footage here because this is when I did film a little bit. Hello, it is the wee hours of July 14th, right?
I think so, yeah.
And we're gonna have a child. Me mainly, is in active labor.
She's a boss, guys. I mean, just...
It hasn't begun yet. My water broke yesterday around noon. I get contractions coming on. Hold on.
Why do I have that in my head right now? That hard metal music where you're like, I'm a beast.
Okay, so, yeah, I've been in early labor since yesterday around noon. Should we do one last little bump shot here? That's where I'm at right now. Whew. Okay. Okay. So I am in active labor here, but still obviously manageable. We work through some contractions. I had like the Christian hypnobirthing app, which basically speaks scripture over you and different things like that. I had that going for a little bit. I really didn't use that much during labor, if I'm being honest. And I had some worship music going. I had a big birth ball, so I was kind of leaning over that doing contractions. The thing that helped me the most was our massage gun. We have like a handheld massage gun, and him using that on my back was incredible. Like, when I tell you, it made the pain of the contraction go away like 80%. Like, it was amazing. So Kai was doing that. I felt like I was rocking it, okay? I was doing that for probably about an hour and a half, I would say, before my doula got there, and I still felt like I was killing it, doing a really good job and all this, and I'll insert a picture here. I was a little bit cocky. I was literally like, I'm doing so great. Everything is great. This isn't even that hard. I'm gonna be great. This is gonna be fine. Because to me, I'm thinking the contractions are really close together. Like, I'm kind of far along, and for how good I feel still. And so I was working through that, and did that for a little while. Eventually I got into the shower, which I loved a lot. Really loved the shower and the hot water. Kai was in there giving me some like grounding to hold on to. I would hold on to his shoulders, hold it around his neck and stuff, and just like sway back and forth, and the hot water would be on my back, and I really enjoyed that. When I think back at my labor, the parts that I enjoyed the most were obviously like the less painful parts, but they were in active labor when I was doing those things. I really enjoyed that. And my doula, she was there. She's amazing. She was helping me through some contractions and stuff. And yeah, they did start getting more intense, but I was still, in my mind, doing pretty good. So my doula ended up calling the midwives because they didn't come until I was getting closer to transition. That was kind of their timing. So my doula called when she knew I was getting closer to transition. And at that point, I didn't know that, so we had a birth tub that was set up in the other room, like in the bonus room area, which is a big tub that they fill with water while the hose connects to the bathroom that's closer to that room. And they were gonna fill it up with hot water and stuff. So my doula and Kai, or I think it was my doula, who she went and she put air into the tub and set it up and stuff like that. And then when the midwives got there, they started trying to fill it. Well, what I didn't know is, so the day before I had gone into labor, so the Tuesday, we had a big storm that night, and it knocked power out. And it's crazy to me to think that that was one day before I went to labor. Like, God is very good. Because, I mean, it wasn't for a super long time, but we had no lights. We couldn't have, you know, like, there was a lot of things that would have been crazy if I had been in labor during that time. But we thought that everything was fine, but it turns out like a circuit or something had hit the water heater for that bathroom. So it had to be turned back on, but nobody knew that. So they were trying to fill up the birth tub, but it was just cold water. It wasn't getting hot. Nobody told me that, obviously, because I'm in labor. Nobody's going to tell me that. I don't even think they told Kai. I think they just told my doula, and they were trying to figure out what to do. Well, to me, the hours passed like literal minutes when it came to active labor. It didn't feel long to me at all. And so apparently they were trying to fill this up for like a couple hours, and I didn't know. So I was in the shower, and my midwives finally came in and were like, okay, we're ready for you to get into the tub if you want. And I was like, sweet. Like, I still had like the best mindset at this point, because I was like, yeah, these are intense, but I'm doing great. And like, if they want me in the tub, that means I'm pretty much in transition, which means this is almost over. I was like, this is great. Like, I can totally do this. I was still very positive. I was cracking jokes, by the way, like this whole time. Like, for instance, my doula, she had different essential oils that I could smell, and one of them was clary sage, and I was smelling it, and I was in like the middle of a contraction or something, and I was like, it smells like Home Depot. She was like, is that a good thing? And I was like, it's great. I love the smell of Home Depot. So she's like, okay, I'll take it. And so we kept putting it in front of my nose, and I kept just being like, or when I needed to ask for it, I'd be like, I need the Home Depot. Give me the Home Depot. And it's really funny. But I was in a really good place mentally for a lot of it. And so they moved me over to the bonus room area for the tub. And I remember walking in there and seeing, they had the blinds closed, but I could still see through the curtains a little bit of light shining through. So I was like, oh my gosh, the sun is either rising or has risen. That means it's like probably 6 a.m., 6:30-ish. I was like, that went so fast. Like, I'm doing great. Like, I know a lot of women, people advise not to have clocks around, not to tell the woman what time it is or anything like that, because they can get really frustrated and they feel like time is going slower and they feel like it's only been 30 minutes. It feels like it's been 6 hours, whatever. For me, for most of my birth, it was totally the opposite. Like, I felt like it went like that. So like when I came out of the shower to go to that room and I saw the sun rising, I was like, that means it's been like 5 hours? Like, that's crazy. Again, I was still very like positive. So I'm getting in the birth tub and I was really excited because I was like, everybody says when they get into the birth tub that the contractions feel like they just totally lift. Like, it feels so much better. And so I was really excited for that because I already felt like I had a hand on it, but I was like, it'll be so nice to feel like I have a break here. Because I should mention this too. Oh, I should have mentioned this earlier. At my midwife appointment, so rewind a second. At my midwife appointment, they, checked to see where baby's positioning was. Like, they felt around to feel where baby's positioning was. My entire pregnancy up to this point, baby boy was in the perfect, like, optimal position for birth, okay? This was the one appointment that they felt and they're like, he's on the opposite side. He still wasn't a breech or anything, but he's on the opposite side, which is fine, but sometimes when that happens, if he's like that for birth, he can turn all the way around your back to get in an optimal position before he's delivered out, which would cause back labor. And I was like, oh, geez, okay, well, and even though I was bummed that I wasn't in labor yet earlier in that day when I was at the appointment, I was like, okay, well, maybe this is a good thing because I want to get baby in the optimal position. So I had a plan to do the mile circuit, to do inversion positions and stuff to try to get him. My water breaks. Yes, so fast forward again, back to where we are. I was having pretty intense back labor this entire labor. If you've had back labor unmedicated, you know. It is nothing to play with. Like, it is pretty intense, which is why the massage gun was incredible to me, okay? Well, I get in the tub. It doesn't take away any of my pain. If anything, I just realized that there's nothing for me to ground myself to. So like the whole time during the intense contractions, I was grounding myself to things physically around me. So some women like their space, like they like having no one around them, don't touch me, and they just do it internally. Like they handle the pain internally. I'm totally the opposite of that. And I needed Kai here. I needed my doula behind me doing hip squeezes. I needed things. Well, I'm in this giant tub now. There's nothing around me. I can't grab onto anything. It's just water, like even hanging over the edge. Like, even though that was better for my contraction, afterwards I wanted to lay back to relax. But the problem was I would lay back between contractions to relax. But when you feel a contraction coming on, you're like, okay, it's coming. You prep yourself for the next contraction. I needed to pull myself up over the edge for the contraction, because laying back didn't feel good during that. But doing that used my abs, which made the contraction worse. I just didn't like it at all. And so that was kind of a bummer, because I was really counting on that taking away a lot of my pain, and I hated it. But I was in the pool for a while, doing all those things, and we tried a lot of different positions. So even when I was at this point I was in transition, but when we were in active labor, which if you don't know, the order goes early labor, I guess I should go over here, early labor, active labor, transition, pushing, delivery, and then post-birth stuff. So I'm in transition right now, so we're getting close, but everything gets crap hits the fan when you go into transition. Everything is very intense. This is kind of the part where people say they want to crawl away from their own body. And this is when crap got real. Even though at this point I was still cracking jokes. So like, for instance, the day that I went into labor, the morning I was in labor was the morning that the British Open, like the golf British Open, began. And it was always a tradition for Kai and his dad to watch the British Open. And it was just funny that, because Kai played golf really well throughout high school, by the way. But so it was always tradition. And then it's like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and I hear the British Open downstairs on the TV. Kai's obviously not watching, he's with me. But I hear it, and like they have this like commentator or whatever, and so I hear the British Open, and I'm going through a contraction, and then it's like between my contractions it's silence, okay, like it's silence, nobody's talking, and I just go, good morning, it's a lovely day, because I'm like replicating what the narrator is saying, like in his accent. And I just start doing it, and Kai and my doula just start cracking up, because I was still trying to stay positive. Or at one point, like Kai was trying to do the hip squeezes and he let up too fast. And I was like, you let up too fast, you let up too fast. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, or whatever. And then afterwards I just go, rookie move, man. And it was just funny because I was in so much pain, but I was still trying to like, that's how I deal with things a lot of times, is humor. But it did get to a point where things just got so painful I was not laughing anymore. Things weren't funny. And we tried doing different positions. At one point they put me on the couch, and I was like lying on my side, and they lifted up one of my legs, and like that, we did that for a few contractions, and they had my legs swinging like over my, I don't know how to describe this, like over the couch on the right, and that was so painful, but I think it dilated me pretty quickly. So we were doing a lot of different positionings and different things like that. And it got to the point, we did a few like going back and forth to the bathroom, on the toilet, doing contractions that way, stuff like that. But pretty early on, when I got out of the tub, I wanted the massage gun again, because that was really, really helpful. And just on my back, because again, the excruciating back labor. The back labor made it so that between contractions, when most people say you have a break between contractions and you don't feel pain, I still felt intense pain, because I felt it fully in my back the entire time. It was just during contractions I felt it in my back and my front and everywhere. So I never got a break. I was so exhausted. They were trying to feed me snacks and drinks and stuff, but I was just, and I was having that, but it was really hard. It was hard to breathe. It was one of those times where the pain is so intense that they say to breathe and you try to take a breath, but you can't. Like, you can't breathe. It feels like the breath got knocked out of you. And so that was really hard. And at one point I really wanted the massage gun back, and they got it, but my midwife team said, we don't want you using that anymore. We don't know if it affects baby. I've never seen people use that before, so I don't want you using it. I was very upset about that. And looking back, I probably should have just stood up for myself and said, no, I'm using this. This is the only pain management technique I have left, because nothing else is working. I tried using the combs that people say to put in your hands and squeeze combs. That did nothing for me. I'm really happy for people it works for. Did nothing for me. The only thing it helped me with was I got to like hold on to something, but like it didn't take pain away. It just felt like I could like hold something. That's it. Like, so I didn't have that. The tub wasn't helping me. Like, I needed something, and I was like, that was the thing I had. And so I was really upset that they told me not to do that. And looking back, I really should have been like, this is my birth. I'm doing this. Like, I don't care. But I didn't. I was too tired in that moment to stand up for myself. So that was really hard. But we did different positions. And I had them, was it before or after? I think it was before. I was on the toilet doing contractions, which dilates you very, very quickly, if you didn't know, but it's very painful. And at that point, I genuinely, I was just screaming out to God. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. There was a point on that toilet where I thought to myself, it's a good thing, because I did a home birth. You probably figured that out at this point. There was a point where I thought to myself, it's a good thing that I'm at home, because I couldn't have done this unmedicated at the hospital, because even having the option of the epidural, I would have taken it. I would have. Like, because you get to a point in pain where if they offer you anything to take the pain away, this was for me. I know other people do it. I have had friends who have done it unmedicated at the hospital. Like, I totally know people can do it. I'm talking about me. If somebody were to say, I can give you something to take this pain away, I would have been like, yeah, let's do it. I don't freaking care what I said. Give it to me. But because I was at home, I didn't even have the option. And I was grateful that I didn't have that choice, because I really did want an unmedicated birth. Just me personally, I wanted one. I wanted to do it. And that was the way that I was able to do it, was not having a choice. So I thought about that, and it did get to a point where I was just crying out to God, because I was like, I need you to deliver this baby for me. I don't want to do this anymore. I was like, just do it. I literally was screaming, God, just deliver the baby for me. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Just deliver the baby. Just do it, all right? And at one point I got very sassy, and I mean, really not. Like, I mean, when I look back, even though there's part of me that was like, wow, I asked God that. I was crying out to God in my weakest moments. That actually, like, the Bible tells us to do that. So I'm not regretful of doing that, but there was a point where I was sitting there and I was like, might as well ask. So I was like, God, please deliver this baby in the next 10 minutes. And my doula was so sweet in that moment. But later on, she had told me, like, after the fact, she was like, yeah, you said that. And I was thinking, I don't know how that's going to happen, because you're not dilated fast enough to deliver this baby in 10 minutes. Because I said, like, I'm just curious, how long was it after I had prayed that the baby was delivered? And she's like, it was like an hour and a half. And I was like, okay. But I prayed it. I asked. I can't say I didn't ask. I probably would have just split open completely if that had happened, though, because I wasn't dilated enough. But I really was crying out to God. I thought my worship music would have helped me more than it did. But there does come a point where you just don't hear anything. Like, people can be saying things to you, trying to encourage you, reading scripture over you. Oh, okay, I should say, this is for me. Everybody's birth experience is so different. For me, it got to a point, it didn't matter what people said to me. It wasn't getting through this thick skull. Like, I was in too much pain to hear anything. Like, at all. So I know the worship music was playing in the background the whole time, and I'm sure I have, like, subconscious memories, like, of different moments attached to different songs, but in the moment I didn't know what was going on. I used that more before I was even in labor, like my pregnancy, than I did during labor. But yeah, a lot of the things that I thought were going to help me did not help me, and then the things that I didn't even anticipate were the things I needed. Like Kai, my husband, he was, oh my gosh, I couldn't have done it without him. I literally couldn't have done it without him and my doula. I needed both of them. I needed both of them to, like, ground myself down and get through it. The plan was, because we had my doula, we thought that he would have time to go get a snack, get a drink of water, take a little rest, go to the bathroom. No, I needed him the entire time. Like, any time that my doula would be like, Kai, go get some water, go get a snack, I would be like, Kai, I need you. Like, he literally couldn't leave. And so that was my problem, because I needed to make sure that I had snacks for him. We know that for next time. We didn't realize. So he was exhausted. He only got like 20 minutes of sleep. He had no food, no water. People were making sure I had, you know, snacks and water and stuff like that. But, like, he needed stuff too, and we didn't even think to plan for that. So that's something. But yeah, so at one point then, I was on the couch, and I was, I had asked, like, this whole time I hadn't been checked yet. I didn't want to be checked until I knew I was pretty close, like cervical checks, because sometimes if you get checked too early and you feel like things are really intense and they're like, you're only at a 6, then you're like, are you kidding me? I can't do this. I can't do this anymore, because 10 centimeters fully dilated. But I was like, you know, at this point, I want to know. I want to know. So my midwife was checking me, and it was funny, because during the check, I got to the point where I was like, a contraction is coming, get out. And she probably was getting out, and it probably just felt like she wasn't to me, but it was coming, and I literally screamed, get out! And she pulled out so fast and just, like, stared at me with these big eyes. And then I had contraction. But then she told me, she was like, okay, I think you're about 9.5, maybe 10 centimeters fully dilated and fully effaced. And I was like, okay. But at that point, I didn't feel pushy yet. So, like, my plan was to wait for my body to just automatically start pushing on its own, which is called, I think, the fetal ejection reflex, and not push myself to push, if that makes sense. But I was getting to the point where I was like, I am exhausted. I'm not feeling pushy yet. And just for some context, I have a hypertonic pelvic floor, which, very overview speaking, means that, like, my pelvic floor tightens and gets spazzy and feels like threatened very easily. And so I was worried that the reason, even though I was almost completely dilated, the reason I wasn't feeling pushy yet had something to do with my pelvic floor. I thought like something's wrong with me, this isn't working. Like I started freaking myself out and getting into a fear mindset, which is not good in labor. And so I kept saying, I don't feel pushy yet, why don't I feel pushy yet? And everybody's like, that's okay. But I felt like things were going slower than they were. My entire labor from start to finish, which I count my labor starting at 1 a.m. because the early labor before that, I didn't even feel anything. So like, I don't count that. So labor to me started at 1 a.m. and my son was born at 9:30 a.m. So it was only 8.5 hours, which by the way, my entire pregnancy, I prayed for an 8-hour birth. Let's just put that out there. But so I felt like things were going a lot slower. I felt like transition was lasting a really long time when it wasn't. And I felt like pushing was going to take a really long time. That was another thing though. So many women said that pushing was a relief for them. Pushing was their favorite part, that they didn't feel as much pain with pushing, all this. So I was excited a little bit because I was like, okay, if I can just get to pushing, people say that that's a relief. No. I literally hated it. I literally hated pushing so much. But I wanted to share this part because this was the most profound lesson that I believe God taught me during my entire labor, was that I had a moment where I was sitting there and I had just very clear thoughts of, wow, this is the most excruciating pain that I've ever gone through, that I might ever go through. It feels like it will never end, but it will end. But hell doesn't end. Like, I know that sounds really dark, but it was this moment where I was like, I had never been more grateful for my salvation in Jesus than that moment. Because when you feel pain that excruciating, and then you think about the eternal suffering and pain of hell forever, and on top of that, the eternal separation from God forever and ever and ever and ever with no relief. I was like, wow. Like, I experienced, like, I had never been so grateful for my salvation. And I will never look at salvation the same way. And I will never look at hell the same way. And I will never look at people who are not believers the same way. Like, I have so much more compassion and urgency to share the gospel and to, just to be grateful to the Lord. Like, I think before I took it kind of for granted, like, because I didn't really grasp it. Like, I knew in my head, like, yeah, hell, eternal suffering. But like, when you feel the depths of pain coursing through your body, through every cell in your body, or the way you never have before, and you feel like nothing is helping and nothing is giving you relief, but you know that it's going to end soon, versus the idea of that 100 times more painful and never ending. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy. And as horribly painful as it was, I am so, so grateful the Lord gifted me with that perspective. Because I will never be the same after that. Like, I will never see life or my life or anybody who's saved life or anybody who's not saved life ever the same. So I wanted to add that in there because I think it is so important. I had somebody else tell me that they felt the same thing when they were going through their unmedicated birth too. So anyway, but yeah, I was feeling really, I had, at that point, I was not making jokes. Nothing was helping with the pain. Like, my doula was in the back giving me hip squeezes intensely. Looking back, I probably should have just had somebody lay me on the floor and push me into the ground from my hips, because that's how intense I needed it for the back labor. And then somebody at my front holding me down. And then I got back in the tub to try to start pushing, because I wanted to start pushing. I was freaking out that my body wasn't going to let me, and I was so, so tired, and my blood pressure was getting pretty high, and I couldn't rest because of the back labor. I had no rest. And I had this feeling of, I need to get this baby out of me. Like, I'm gonna pass out. And I had said out loud, I feel like I'm gonna pass out. And I don't know, I could be assuming things, but it felt like my midwives kind of freaked out when I said that and said, you feel like you're gonna pass out? Like, kind of worried. And I immediately stopped and saying anything. And in my head I thought, okay, I can't say that again. Because if I say that again, they might try to transfer me to a hospital. I'm not transferring. I didn't do all of this to transfer. And so I was like, I'm not gonna say that again. I can't pass out. I have to get this baby out of me. I don't have enough energy to do this much longer. So I was like, guess we're gonna tear today. Because the idea is that when you listen to the fetal ejection reflex, you are way less likely to tear usually. I was like, we're tearing today. So I started just pushing on my own a little bit, but it was very, very intense. It was not a relief for me. I hated pushing. And I realized that I needed to scream. Like, I needed to guttural scream, but not just like the, that women talk about. I was doing that in the whole labor. I'm talking to the depths of my core, screaming as intensely as I possibly could, everywhere, like as loud as I could, not like high pitched, but just everything out of me, because I don't know how to explain this, but it was the only way I had enough power to push. Like, I had no energy left. But if I somehow like grounded myself to that sound, like to doing that, like it was almost like I can push that out, I can push this out, like at the same time. And so that's what I did. Now, people tried telling me, they're like, you have to try to stop screaming because you're using so much energy and you don't have enough energy to do both. And I was like, I can't not. So here we go. So I just didn't listen to them. I just kept screaming because it was the only thing I had. It was literally the only thing I felt like I had. I mean, of course I had the Lord, but like, again, when you're in that place, it's easy enough to say like, I'll just pray, but like, you are in utter pain. So like, it was almost like my scream was a prayer to God. Like it was just everything I had all at once. And so I was screaming, pushing a scream out, pushing him out. And I was pushing and pushing. And in the tub, I was in the tub when I was pushing. Because I really wanted him to be born in the tub. But I couldn't grip anything. Like, it was this big tub, and so I was trying to grip dig my heels in and grab here, but like Kai said, like when I during contractions and pushing, I was lifting my entire body out. I looked like I was like being like an exorcism, like my whole body, I was like lifting everything in me up. All my muscles were just like tearing, like it was crazy, and I couldn't get enough like anything to push off of to push him out. And so he got to the point where he was crowning, but he was not stuck, but like they could tell this was like too hard for me to do in the tub. So he was crowning, which means like his head was like partially coming out, and they were like, we have to get you out of the tub right now. And I was like, what? You want me to step out of this tub, which is like 2.5 feet high, like maybe 3 feet high. You want me to step out of it while my child is basically between my legs? You just, okay, all right, how are we gonna do that? So I did, by the grace of God. I don't know how, but I lifted my legs over. I got out and I got onto the ground, onto a towel, and Kai was sitting in a chair, kind of like how I am right now. He was sitting here, and I was bent over in front of him, facing him. And I was on my knees, holding onto him like this. And I did like a couple contractions, and I was in so much pain. I mean, there was a point, I think I was still in the tub at this point I'm about to tell you. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this. And I was screaming, I can't do this anymore. And Kai, that's when he said he started crying, because he was screaming back, yes you can, like he was trying to hype me up. But he saw that I was just like falling apart. Like he really did tell me after the fact. He's like, I didn't know if you could do it, not because of your mental capacity. He's like, I thought your body was gonna give out. Like, you were fading fast. And so when you said you can't do it, like he started getting emotional, because he felt like she might not be able to do this. Like, her body might not do this. And Anyway, so I had gotten out, like, I was holding onto him, onto the chair, I was on my knees, I was pushing a little bit and stuff like that, and he was like pulling me up while I was pulling down. And at one point he said he wanted to get like just a little break, so he like let go a tiny bit and like let me fall a little, and I guess that pushed baby down a little bit more or something, and the midwives were like, yeah, keep doing that, and he was like, what? So he let go a little bit more, and they're like, yeah, that's good, and so baby started coming down more. I don't remember this, I really don't. And at one point he's like, all right, and he just let go of me. I collapsed onto my knees, like basically my knees were on the ground and they basically split completely open, and baby arrows flew out of me. And I do remember that moment, but I remember it as I gave up. I was just like, and like I just collapsed and he fell out. Like literally, he fell out. It wasn't just his head and then his body. He flew out of me and onto the ground, to the point it was so fast they almost didn't catch him. And he flew on the ground, and then they put him in front of me, and my eyes were like closed. Like I said, I give it up. They put him in front of me, and they're like, you did it! And I looked, and I opened my eyes, I was like, what? I was like in shock. And then I looked at him for a second, and he basically looked back like, wow, like, Mom, hello. And I, looked down, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's a boy. And like, I felt like this whole moment was like 30 seconds long, and it was like 10 minutes, but I was so out of it and so tired that like I thought I said it's a boy one time. I said it like 27 times. They got on video. I was like, it's a boy, it's a boy, it's a boy, it's a boy. Like I was so out of it. And they were like, pick him up to you, and I was like, I can't. Like I had no energy to even pull him up to my tummy. Like I was like, I can't lift him. And they're like, okay, well, and they like helped me, but his cord was really short. Like they say cords are normally like pretty long, and his was like that. So it was very short, but he was fine. But I couldn't pull him all the way up to my chest. I just pulled him up to my tummy. And then they were like, we need to get you on the couch though. We need to assess your bleeding. And I was like, I literally can't move. Like I can't stand up. I can't move my body. I can't hold him. Like I'm too tired. I have nothing in me. I'm gonna pass out. Like I have nothing left. And they helped me, and they got me to the couch to assess my bleeding. But you probably know this, but after you deliver the baby, you have to also deliver the placenta. So, which is like nothing compared to the baby. But he was on my chest, and we did delayed cord clamping. So we waited quite a bit of time. Like we waited, I think like 15 or 10 minutes or whatever. We waited until the cord was fully white, fully limp. They let me feel it, all that stuff. All the good blood had gotten to him before we cut the cord. So we cut the cord, and then we were gonna try to deliver the placenta. It still hadn't come out yet. They were worried about they wanted to assess my bleeding and my stitching. They knew I tore quite a bit. Oh, I didn't tell you about the ring of fire. Yeah, I felt it. That was the ring of fire. That was the only point that during the entire labor I was screaming out loud, and I said, ow, 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 it hurts. Like, I mean, to be honest though, it didn't hurt any worse than the contractions. Like, it was still very painful, but like, it's a different kind of pain. Tearing is a different kind of pain than contractions are. And I can say that in the sense that I had borderline almost a 3rd degree tear, which is pretty severe, almost a 3rd degree. So I tore pretty intense, and even through that, I didn't think it was worse than contractions. I thought they were all the same level of pain, just different. So they wanted to assess my bleeding and stuff, but my placenta hadn't delivered yet, so they're like, we want to tug on the cord to see if it helps the placenta deliver. I didn't want to do that, and I said I would really rather not. And I honestly, looking back, I wish I would have dug my heels in this a little bit more. But I said I'd really rather not, and they said, okay, but let me just tug on it a little bit, and we'll see, and if it doesn't give, then I won't, whatever. So they tugged on it a little bit. The placenta did not move, so we waited for another contraction. I said, can I just like try to bear down and push? And they were like, yeah, and they were gonna pull it at the same time, which I didn't want, but they did anyway, I guess. And So they pulled, and again, in that moment, I probably did give consent. I was so out of it, but I didn't want to do it. So I wish I would have been more intense about, like, I do not want my cord being pulled at all. We're going to wait for the placenta to deliver on its own. So I know that for next time. But they pulled on it while I was having a contraction. It pulled out, but it came out in pieces, kind of. Like, it looked like it came out in one big piece, but there were membranes left behind in my placenta. So we knew that. So that was one. Then they knew they had to get me to go pee. So this is the part of birth you don't see. They knew that they had to get me to go to the bathroom and pee. And if I couldn't pee, they were going to have to put in a catheter. But everything, like, people told me all these things to prepare for that were going to be really hard, and those things weren't hard for me. The things that I didn't prepare for smacked me in the face like a freight train. Like, I thought it was going to be really hard to pee. So I went to the bathroom, I was like, I'm kind of scared. And I peed, didn't hurt at all, wasn't hurt at all. Great! Well, now I have to get stitched up, and I have a borderline 3rd-degree tear, and I was really nervous about getting stitched. I really was. Not because of the pain level, but because of, like, I hate the idea of needles. I hate the idea of sewing me up. Like, I hate all of that. Like, the concept of that freaks me out. So they laid me on my bed, and they had arrows on my chest to try to calm me down, Kai by my head, my doula by my head, and they were gonna have to, you know, stitch me up. Well, they gave me the numbing, all the maximum amount that they could for my weight. Well, the numbing wore off at one point. I don't know if it was halfway through or what, but I had quite a bit of repairs to be done. So it's not like they were being slow. They were going the fastest they could, but, like, the numbing wore off, and they couldn't give me more. So I had to take some of the stitches just, like, on my own. And that wasn't fun, but even so, that was nothing compared to unmedicated labor at all. At all. So they got me stitched up, and then they got me laid down in bed and stuff, and then they weighed Eros and everything like that, which was great, but I was so tired. I was so freaking tired. I was so tired. And they were, like, they kept taking my blood pressure because they were very concerned about my blood pressure, like, it seemed really high. And I was like, okay, well, it could just be high because I've been through the most painful, excruciating, intense thing of my whole life. And but I asked if I could take a quick shower, like, if people could help me take a shower just to rinse off. Cause, like, I was in the pool, I was sweating, there was blood, there was a lot of things, like, all this stuff. Like, I did poop in the tub, like, things happened, and I was like, I just want to rinse off. Oh, also, I tried to, like, look cute for my labor. I had, like, my hair pretty and stuff. That did not last at all. At one point I was like, it got all wet in the tub and gross, and I asked my doula to just put it in a bun for me, and it was a wreck. It was just a lot happened. So I did not look cute. My birth was not aesthetically pleasing in any way whatsoever. But yeah, so they helped me get in the shower, but I couldn't really take a hot one because they were worried about my blood pressure being too high. So it was kind of a cold shower. I just didn't care. I was like, I just want to be not so gross. And so I got then out of the shower, laid down, and at one point we, after, like, they were trying to go over, like, my care of, like, what I need to do to clean myself and everything, into the peri bottles and the herbs and everything like that. They were trying to go over it with me, and I was just to the point where I was like, you have to tell somebody else this. I can't understand what you're saying. I'm so tired. So they're like, okay. And so they had one of our family members come in and tell her everything so that she could help take care of me, and help Kai take care of me and stuff, because I literally was like, if this is my life or death, like, I'll die if I have to know these things, because I can't understand what you're saying. So I was just genuinely so exhausted. I think part of it was, a lot of people say they get this rush of hormones and adrenaline after your baby's born. I think part of it was just because I didn't get any breaks. My labor was very fast and my pushing was very fast for a first-time mom. But with that being said, the intensity was that much more intense in that short of a time. And on top of that, I had the intense back labor. I was going against a hypertonic pelvic floor, like, a lot of things. I was exhausted. Just a bunch of stuff. I didn't have like any muscle on my body at this point because I didn't eat as much as I wanted to during my pregnancy. That's a whole different thing. But anyway, I was just so wiped. And so I didn't really get that rush of adrenaline, or if I did, it just kept me barely awake. That's it. So a little bit later on, when I had family holding Eros and stuff, I was basically like, I'm sleeping. I don't care. So while everybody's here, I didn't even care. I just fell right asleep. It was only for like an hour, but it was something at least. But yeah, he latched right away, by the way, right when they had him on my chest, like, he latched right away. He's been an incredible breastfeeding experience so far, which is, I'm so grateful for that. Just to briefly touch on it too, about 3 days later, 3 days, I think, I got a really, really bad stomach bug. And it was really, really intense. My fever got extremely high. And with that, we didn't know if that was because is there leftover placenta still in my uterus that is infected now, whatever. Like, there were just a lot of things I was freaking out about it, but it was a stomach bug. So I was running to the bathroom constantly. I couldn't keep anything down. I could barely keep just water down, but I knew I had to still breastfeed him. I couldn't really sleep. Like, I was so, like, everything. It was a lot. It was a lot, and I was scared. I was really scared. But we got through that, and then about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, I started having really intense contraction pains again. And I was like, what is this? And because afterbirth pains are normal, but it's usually within the first week when your uterus is shrinking down. And I didn't really have that in the first week. My uterus was just shrinking down on its own without the pain. So I was like, why is this starting at like week 4 postpartum? My midwives didn't know, my doula didn't, like, nobody really knew except my one friend, Kaylee. Shout out to Kaylee. She suggested, she's like, you might have a UTI, maybe get a test strip. But I was like, there's no way this is just a UTI, whatever. So we were kind of freaking out, figuring out what it was, but the cramps kept going and they would happen during the night, which sucked. So I could barely get rest. And then during the day, I'd have these like deep pains. I was getting so tired. I couldn't carry Eros around. Like, I couldn't do anything. Like, it was really hard. And none of this was from being unmedicated birth, by the way. None of this. This was just the enemy attacking us, I think. But long story short, I ended up getting an ultrasound done to see if there was any leftover placenta that had been infected, because that can be really serious. There wasn't. I was totally normal. It was a UTI. So I ended up taking a UTI test about 2.5 weeks after these pains started. I wonder if I had it almost immediately after birth. Like, maybe the stomach bug thing, maybe that is when I got it, that too. Like, for a few weeks, I don't know if it hit my kidneys, I don't know what, but it caused intense pains up my back, intense contraction pains, but I didn't have a fever with it or anything like that, and so a lot of people thought, there's no way this is just a UTI. So I'm here to tell you this because if that ever happens to you or somebody you know, and they're like, I don't understand why I'm having these pains, have them take a UTI test just to see, because it was that for me. I got on antibiotics. Normally I would try to treat it naturally, but I didn't know how serious it was. I didn't know if it had hit my kidneys yet, and I just wanted to get it over with to be able to take care of my baby and carry him around and stuff. The contraction pains, the cramping went totally away, like all of that. So anyway, I'm just saying that in case that helps anybody out there, because I would love if that could help somebody somewhere one day. It was just, I still can't believe, like, there were so many times, like, right after I delivered him and they said, you did it. I literally was like, I can't believe I did it. I was like, I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I could do it. Like, I think there was this big part of me, even this entire pregnancy, that was like, I don't think I can do this. But, like, I didn't let myself think that way because I wanted to be in the most, like, driven mindset possible to try to give myself the best shot at doing it, right? Unmedicated and at home and stuff. But there was a big part of me that was like, I'm a wimp. I don't have pain tolerance. Like, I can't do this. Like, people, like, there are people so much tougher than me who didn't have an unmedicated birth because they said they couldn't handle the pain. There's no way I can do this. Like, I can't do this. And it really does just show the strength and the glory of God, because I really was the weakest I've ever been. Like, I was so weak and tired, and it was God. It really was God. Like, he pulled me through. Right when every time I thought I can't do this anymore, God somehow gave me the strength to go a little bit more. And like, I can't do this anymore. Gave me a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And I was able to do it. Like, there's been a lot of times so far just in motherhood that I was like, I can't do this. But it's like, you have to. And God will get you through. And you have to. You're a mom. And one of those times was getting really, really sick and having to nurse him, like feed him every 2 to 3 hours while having a stomach virus. Like, there was at one point where I had to run to the bathroom to go to the bathroom because I couldn't not, because I had the stomach bug, but I was feeding him at the same time. So I'm holding him, feeding him while I'm going to the bathroom and have nothing in me mineral wise or anything. Like, I had just nothing in me. I was so exhausted. But it's like, you have to. You have to. And you have people who love you and will help you, but there are certain things you have to do. You have to feed your baby. You have to take care of your baby. You are a mom now. And it was a very harsh transition into motherhood, but like a beautiful one too, because God strengthened me and sustained me and kept me going. And, you know, there's so many lessons. I could probably do an entire video on just the lessons the Lord taught me through birth, because it was the most transformative experience of my entire life. I will never see God the same. I will never see the Bible the same. I will never see salvation the same, or heaven or hell, any of it. I will never see it the same. I am truly a transformed person, and God did that through birth, through the birth of my son. And so it's crazy. It was wild. It was not aesthetically pleasing. I thought it was going to be this beautiful, you know, like all the home birth videos are, where it's pretty and all this stuff, and there, you know, how you have these moments. No, I'm glad we didn't hire a videographer, because honestly, it would have just, half of it would have probably been me screaming. Maybe for our next baby, but like, it was the most raw, real, primal, this is real crap, things hit, like crap hitting the fan, everything happening, intense, painful, but beautiful and hard and good thing ever. And I think that needs to be talked about more. It wasn't this euphoric, fun experience. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my whole life and will probably ever do, because they say after that, every kid usually typically gets a little bit easier, and birth gets a little easier and a little shorter. So that will probably be the hardest thing I've ever done. And it was worth it, and so hard. And yeah, so transformative. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you for watching the whole thing. I know it was long. Check out my Patreon if you haven't already, if you'd like to support us over there and get exclusive content. And I will see you guys soon. I love you so much. Bye.